Okay, let's dive into this explainer. Today, we're taking a really close look at a deeply fascinating document called Magnifica Humanitas, and we're going to unpack exactly what it says about this wild, rapid integration of AI into our daily lives. If you're someone who wants to understand not just how the tech works, but how it's actually reshaping the very fabric of our society, well, you're absolutely in the right place. We're going to break down this ethical framework piece by piece, relying entirely on what this text maps out for the future of digital governance. Right off the bat, we've got to ask ourselves a pretty vital question. Is technology serving us, or are we slowly becoming servants to the machine? I mean, we live in a time of just unprecedented technological power, right? We're surrounded by algorithms that curate our news, machines that optimize our workflows, and devices tracking our every habit. As these systems get smarter and more autonomous, this central question really highlights the incredibly high stakes of our modern digital era. To answer that, the encyclical Magnifica Humanitas steps in to provide a roadmap for this entirely new digital frontier. Now, the text explicitly positions itself as a solution to the threats of a purely technocratic future. It argues, neutrally but very firmly, that technological progress must always take a backseat to two non-negotiable concepts: human dignity and the common good. It's basically offering an ethical framework to make sure humanity doesn't just get lost in its own code. Section 1. Infinite human value, the core philosophical claim. So this is the foundational premise of the whole document. It centers on a rather dense philosophical concept called ontological dignity, but honestly, we can break it down pretty simply. According to the text, this is a fundamental human gift. It's infinite, it can't be earned, and more importantly for us today, it literally cannot be erased or superseded by any technological upgrade, no matter how advanced. The core assertion here is that humanity must never be replaced by machinery, simply because our worth is inherent to who we are, not what we output. There's a really stark contrast drawn here between two worldviews. On one side, the text outlines the technocratic paradigm. This is the view that tries to reduce an individual to just a mere data point or a resource to be mathematically optimized. On the flip side is human reality. The encyclical argues that no algorithm, literally none, can replicate a heart capable of self-giving love or a conscience that can actually discern good from evil. It uses this exact contrast to explain why cold, hard algorithmic optimization will always fall short of human complexity. Section 2. Babel versus Jerusalem, the divergent paths. And this brilliantly illustrates the metaphorical choices we're facing. Think about the Tower of Babel. The text uses this ancient story to represent the idolatry of profit, technocratic pride, and a reliance on technical power that ultimately crushes human diversity. But then, conversely, we have Jerusalem. This symbolizes shared responsibility and fraternal coexistence. It's a model where scientists, legislators, and everyday folks actually work together to build a community. The text presents these as our divergent paths for the future. Are we heading toward prideful isolation or a shared cooperative community? Moving on to Section 3, Ethically Disarming AI, the Rules of Engagement. Now this is where the document shifts from philosophical groundwork right into practical governance. And here's one of the absolute boldest claims in the entire text: AI is never morally neutral. The document argues that every single piece of technology inevitably carries the inherent biases, the priorities, and the blind spots of its human creators. By pointing this out, the text demands that we stop treating algorithms like they're these objective, flawless arbiters of truth and start recognizing them for what they are: human-made tools that require strict ethical oversight. To actually provide that oversight, the encyclical outlines 3 really clear, digestible mandates. Step 1 is accountability. Step 2, transparency. And step 3 is disarming AI. Let's break down exactly what the text means for each of these policy recommendations and how they might actually impact you. Starting with accountability. The mandate here is that humans must remain fully responsible for irreversible decisions. Think about how this applies to your everyday life for a second. When you apply for a job, seek a mortgage, request a line of credit, the text argues that an algorithm should never, ever have the final, unaccountable say over your livelihood. A human being must always be in the loop and take actual responsibility for those life-altering decisions. The second step is transparency. The document defines this as a fundamental right. It asserts that you have the right to understand and, crucially, to challenge the algorithms that affect your life. If a digital system is making decisions about you, the inner workings of that system just can't be hidden away in some proprietary black box. Transparency is presented here as an absolute essential safeguard for civil rights in the digital age. The third mandate is what the document calls disarming AI, and this is meant both metaphorically and literally. The text calls for freeing artificial intelligence from the grips of aggressive economic monopolies and military competition. The argument is, if we genuinely want technology to serve humanity, its primary design and use has to be structured as a tool for peace and human flourishing, rather than a weapon for societal or global dominance. Section 4. The Digital Common Good. Expanding shared resources. So, the crucial point is, how do we define the digital common good? The document takes a very traditional concept, the idea that earthly resources should be shared, and applies it straight to the digital realm. The text lists 4 key elements here: patents, data, infrastructure, and truth. The encyclical argues these elements shouldn't be monopolized by just a select few tech conglomerates. Instead, the underlying infrastructure of our digital world and the massive amounts of data it generates should be structured to benefit the entire human family. You probably noticed truth was on that list. Well, because the document views truth itself as a common good, it calls for structured ways to combat the modern plague of disinformation. It proposes what it calls an ecology of communication. Basically, this means proactively creating systems and educational frameworks that help people, especially the next generation, navigate digital environments critically. It's about ensuring that truth isn't just drowned out by optimized outrage or algorithmic noise. Section 5. Human limits as strengths: work, war, and vulnerability. This brings us to the final thematic pillar, which addresses how we view our human limitations in the face of these incredibly capable autonomous systems. First up, the sphere of work. The document's stance is that the dignity of human work has to be fiercely protected from complete automation. It states that, sure, technology should be utilized to relieve us of arduous, dangerous, or degrading tasks, but it must not be used as an excuse for mass unemployment. Work isn't just about economic output here. The text emphasizes it as an essential key to social justice and human purpose. The document also wades right into the geopolitics of war, issuing a strict, uncompromising condemnation of delegating lethal decisions to autonomous weapons. It establishes a definitive boundary. A machine should never, ever decide who lives or dies. The core argument presented is that absolutely no algorithm can ever possess the moral framework required to make the horrific realities of war acceptable or humane. Finally, under this pillar, the encyclical offers a really direct critique of transhumanism. It defines transhumanism as the flawed idea that our human limits are simply technical defects just waiting to be fixed by technology. The document argues the exact opposite. It posits that our limitations and our vulnerabilities are not bugs in our programming. They are essential features. They are precisely what open us up to compassion, to deep relationships, and to our fundamental need for one another. Section 6. Building a Human World, the Ultimate Goal. As we wrap up, the text brings the massive, global scale of AI policy right back down to the individual choices of humanity. It concludes by proposing a demanding project: the creation of a civilization of love. Now, this isn't presented as mere sentimentality. The text defines it as the rigorous, structural translation of charity into our actual social and digital architectures. It means designing algorithms, platforms, and policies with the specific intent that every single digital encounter becomes a genuine opportunity for care rather than just another transaction for data extraction. Which leaves us with this final, powerful question. In the end, will we build a better machine, or will we choose to build a more human world? The encyclical Magnifica Humanitas makes it crystal clear that we cannot passively let technology decide our future. The choice of how we govern this digital frontier and what we actually value most ultimately rests in our human hands. It's definitely something to think very deeply about the next time you log on.